Welcome back to Civilian Rifleman. Today we're grappling with a heavy topic, one that's shaken our nation and left many of us searching for answers. The assassination of Charlie Kirk on September 10th, 2025 at Utah Valley University has torn open wounds in America's already divided heart. On one side, we see outrage, grief, and calls for justice. And on the other, there are those celebrating and even demanding for more violence. It's a fracture that feels all too familiar when you look at history. Today we're going to explore 4 moments from the past where assassinations didn't just divide societies, but they sparked revolutions, civil wars, and lasting unrest. These stories remind us how fragile the line is between words and chaos. It's also important to note that civil war, revolution, or prolonged periods of violence have genuinely not been seen in the United States on her soil on a major scale since the American Revolution or the American Civil War, and as such, this is a reminder that that direction is not a good direction for us to go. In 1881, Russia stood on the edge of change. Tsar Alexander II, known as the Liberator for freeing the serfs, was trying to modernize an empire steeped in autocracy. But on March 13th, a bomb thrown by a revolutionary group, Narodnaya Volya, ended his life in St. Petersburg. For those who saw hope in his reforms, the loss was devastating. Mourners filled the streets, fearing a return to oppression. But for the radicals, this was a victory. They called Alexander a tyrant, passing out pamphlets praising his killers and urging more attacks on the monarchy. The divide was stark. Reformers versus revolutionaries. His death did not unite Russia. It set the stage for repression, rebellion, and eventually the Russian Revolution and Civil War decades later. When a leader's death becomes a rallying cry for both sides, the fallout can last generations. Does it sound familiar? When one side mourns a martyr and another cheers a symbol's fall, the ground beneath a nation trembles. The assassination ultimately intensified repression under Alexander III, but it also galvanized revolutionary movements, which contributed to the radicalization that culminated in the Russian Revolution in 1905, and later, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, which sparked the Russian Civil War of 1917 to 1923. Fast forward to 1919. In the heat of the Mexican Revolution, Emiliano Zapata, a champion of land reform for Mexico's peasants, was ambushed and killed on April 10th in Morelos by forces loyal to President Venustiano Carranza. To the rural poor, the Zapatista rebels, his death was a gut punch, a betrayal of their fight for justice. Crowds gathered, vowing to carry on his cause, but in the cities, elites in Carranza's government celebrated, branding Zapata a dangerous outlaw whose death would restore order. Instead of peace, Zapata's assassination fueled the flames of Mexico's revolution. His supporters took up arms, and the conflict dragged on, a civil war born from a single bullet. When a nation splits over a killing, the fight doesn't end, it escalates. Zapata's death shows us how quickly grief can turn to rage and celebration to callousness when ideologues collide. Zapata's death escalated factional conflicts within the Mexican Revolution, fueling continued violence between revolutionary groups and government forces, effectively prolonging the civil war-like conditions of the revolution until the 1920s. In 1961, the young nation of Congo faced a turning point. Patrice Lumumba, its first prime minister, dreamed of a unified, independent Africa. But on January 17th, he was assassinated in Katanga with involvement with Congolese rivals and foreign powers. To his supporters, Pan-Africanists and socialists, Lumumba's death was a neo-colonial tragedy. Protests erupted and militias formed to avenge him. Yet to those backed by Western interest in Katanga's secessionists, his killing was a necessary step to stop, quote, a communist threat. The result? The Congo Crisis, a brutal, multi-sided conflict that tore the nation apart. Lumumba's death didn't resolve the divide. It plunged the Congo into a civil war that claimed countless lives. When a leader's death becomes a symbol, it can light a fuse no one can extinguish. Lumumba's story is a warning. When one side cheers and another mourns, the cost is often paid in blood. In 1987, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Thomas Sankara, was gunned down in a coup led by his deputy, Blaise Compaoré. Sankara, a charismatic Marxist, inspired millions with his vision of African self-reliance. His supporters, rural communities, socialists, Pan-Africanists, grieved him as a hero, taking to the streets in defiance. Ultimately, the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk has left us at a crossroads. Like Tsar Alexander II, Zapata, Lumumba, and Sankara, his death has become a lightning rod. Grief and anger on one side, celebration and dangerous rhetoric on the other. History shows what happens when the divides fester: revolutions, civil wars, and cycles of violence that tear nations apart. We've seen it in Russia, Mexico, the Congo, Burkina Faso, and we risk seeing it here if we don't step back from the edge. At Civilian Rifleman, we're not just about history, we're about learning from it. These stories aren't just echoes of the past, they're warnings for our future. So I ask you, how do we stop this cycle? How do we turn down the heat before words become weapons? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about solutions, not division. If this resonated with you, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and join us next time as we navigate these turbulent times together. Stay vigilant and stay thoughtful. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.